I'm here to introduce Douglas Tainton. He is a fellow Rotarian from the Kingston Frontenac Club and a strong connection to the United Nations HCR. Douglas is chair of the Kingston Frontenac Club International Services Committee, and he chairs the Rotary International Joint International Program Committee for District 7040. That's a big job with a huge salary. It's something I've been after for a long time. Professionally, Douglas works to support large and growing international causes, and for the past 8 years plus, he has worked as senior advisor of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. It is through his work globally with UNHCR that Douglas has got to know our speaker this evening, Mr. Nader el Nakib. I am pleased to introduce Mr. Douglas Tainton.
I'll make this brief, but President Donna and esteemed guests, I'm so pleased to be here, bringing very important parts of my life together with many years work with UNHCR and many years service with Rotary, Kingston Frontenac Club, and regionally, and some meetings here in Toronto. I'm so pleased to be here this evening and to see many of my Rotary friends here in Toronto. And of course, pleased to introduce my friend, Mr. Nader el Nakib. Nader is the president of private sector partnerships at the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees here in Canada. And he leads a really interesting part of UNHCR, innovative, collaborative works with corporations, foundations, and philanthropists to drive real impact for refugees at a time when all of us know it couldn't be more important. He is new to Canada and only 7 months in to Canada after moving from the Middle East. And I encourage everyone to get to know him after he says his words. He's really a multi-results-driven leader, and his expertise lies in building strategic partnerships and crafting innovative initiatives. You know, all the words don't do justice. I'm so honored to present to you this evening, Mr. Nader el Nakib. Nader, if you would.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Douglas. That was so flattering. I hope I can stand up to what you said about me. And before I saw that, how's the chicken tonight? So I came here 7 months ago. I came from Dubai. I had the similar role in the Middle East, where I work with partners, people who would like to help refugees around the world. But when I came here, I had the chance to reflect of a lot of how people here, they act differently when it comes to philanthropy. And there's a lot of respect to how humanitarian Canadians are. And I'm going to give some examples in comparison. There's no right and wrong in this, but different reactions are kind of common to different people from different countries. So I arrived on a Wednesday. I was so excited to go to the office. And a colleague calls me and said, oh, by the way, we only go on Tuesday. So that was the first shock. I go 4 days a week in Dubai. 3 days after joining, it was all over the news. International financial aid will be brutally cut. Said, oh my God, what a kind of welcome is that? It's not Canada, by the way, but it's affecting the whole world. And I'm going to come back to this because this is actually at the core of any humanitarian work around the world. In the Middle East, Ramadan is the biggest donation period. In Canada, it's Christmas and Giving Tuesday. In the Middle East, all wars are close by. So if any crisis happens, if we do not mobilize our campaigning within 24 hours, we're out of the game. Here, I get a check for a crisis that happened 2 months ago, and more checks will come, and hefty ones. So the reaction is also different. Also, one thing that I love about here is that majority of funding, and to be exact, 73% of our checks come in unrestricted, earmarked only to the people most in need. And this tells a lot about the humanitarian in every one of you. Finally, physical meetings. In the Middle East, people have to know me, have to like me, have to enjoy the company before they decide to write their big checks. Here, nobody wants to meet me, nobody wants to talk to me, and their checks keep on coming, which is awesome. So why did I join the UNHCR? I was in politics, in family business, in the corporate world. Even I had my own foundation. But I joined the UNHCR, and this question was asked by my boss the minute I was hired. He said, why do you want to join UNHCR? And I said, for two main reasons. One, that scale of impact. Working for a UN agency, you can do a lot of impact, bigger than any country, bigger than any individual, bigger than any foundation or corporation. Second, I would love to do something and be paid for that I will do pro bono. And I was hired. The UNHCR is actually the UN Refugee Agency, but there's a lot of things that UNHCR does that are unique to UNHCR. When people flee, people don't decide to flee, become a refugee because they're thinking of a better life or whatever. It's not immigration. Refugees are forced to flee. And this is the last choice they take before they leave their place. Because fleeing from a disaster, a crisis, the journey is so dangerous. Firstly, leaving home is not easy. Second, they go through jungles, mountains, deserts, sometimes oceans and seas. They have elderly and they have kids with them. And they stop at the first place they find safety. And safety does not mean livability. The lucky of them will find a tree to sleep under. That's the lucky of them. And this is where UNHCR comes in. We are proud that within 72 hours of any crisis around the world, we have boots on the ground. The second thing, so of course, there's nothing like home we try to support, right? So bring in food, shelter, water, and hopefully this continues until they are either settled in a better place, they are resettled in another country, or they go back to their own country. But in the meanwhile, the support system is provided by people like UNHCR in the philanthropic world and supported by people and countries who would like to support for humanitarian reasons. But there's another important thing that only UNHCR does. We issue the documentation that a refugee can live with a refugee status in their host country, in the country that's hosting them. This documentation is like their passport, issued by UNHCR, accredited by the host country, that they are not deported to be deported. They have the refugee status in that country. And that alone means a lot for somebody who doesn't have any kind of documentation. Currently, there are 123 million refugees around the world. If I want to compare that to a population, that's almost equal to the number of population of Japan. And they're scattered all over the world, but mainly in countries who are as poor or even poorer from the countries they had to flee from. And climate change is adding to the toll. 90 million of the 123 million refugees are currently in areas that are affected by climate. So eventually, when you have a sudden influx of 1 million people into a border of another country that's actually not being supported by the government itself due to poor situation and stuff like that, imagine how the resources will be depleted even faster. So climate is not only causing a first displacement, it could cause a second displacement, including the host community, and it's only growing. A refugee lives on $1.25 a day. That's it, Canadian. $1.25 a day. And then these cuts came in. And the cuts are brutal. We're operating at half of the budget we should have at UNHCR globally. And this is equal to the same budget we had 10 years ago when refugees were half as much around the world. Due to the cuts, 11.6 million refugees will be unaided this year. Women and children will pay the highest price. Schools are being shut down. Healthcare is being stopped. But humanitarian work cannot be postponed. You cannot tell a student at school that come back in 3 years, we might have funding for you. That's a generation lost. You cannot tell a pregnant woman that come back in 2 years and deliver, we'll have some funding for you. It is down to these things that we cannot even support. And I'm here not talking to UNHCR, I'm talking about the whole humanitarian scene. And to add to that, we not only are cutting programs, but of course we're cutting staff. But when you cut staff, who will do the programs, right? When you took all these years to build logistics to be able to support refugees all around the world in 72 hours, if you have any glitch in that system because of lack of funding, you cannot easily have it again. So the effect is not only for this year, it's continuing. So what can we do? First, we are trying to rethink all our operation to try to cope. But all of you that come from the private sector, had their own businesses, or come from the corporate world, understand that if you're that much squeezed, your solutions are not sustainable. You cut people, you cut programs, but what is next? It's like a downhill spiral, and these people have nobody to help them. But still, for climate, for example, we're doing some innovation. We're solarizing some of the camps. We're solarizing the boreholes so that they would work with less energy, no energy, in fact, like no gas needed anymore. We're also using AI. We're doing reforestation, that's about climate. We're having more tents that are fire resistant. We're trying to support the communities in reforestation, because reforestation is not about having less carbon dioxide and more fresh air. Reforestation for these communities is also a livelihood for the host and for the refugees. And we're using AI. I'll give you an example about my country, Lebanon. So last year, there was a war in Lebanon, and within less than 2-3 hours, 1 million people were displaced in 3 hours. In a country that has 5 million people, no system can actually deal with that if we hadn't the AI chatbots responding to people of where to go and what to do and whatever. Also, AI is helping us reforecast, plan and forecast what will happen, where will people go, what they will need, and stuff like that. And for speech hate analysis. So these are just examples about what could make our operations more efficient, and we're doing that, but these need resources and need time to implement. Narrowing all of this to Canada, So I'm glad at this moment, during this crisis, I'm in Canada. Because Canadians are stepping up, honestly. Not because I'm in Canada. I say that all over the world, wherever I'm going, I'm talking about this. So in Canada, as I mentioned, I want to repeat that because it's very touching and it's one of the highest in the world. 73% is unrestricted funding. They don't care about the ethnicity, about the race, about the color, about anything, about the religion. Just support people in need. And Canadians, through the private sector, supported 500,000 refugees globally through UNHCR, only through UNHCR last year. And 2 Canadian ladies from the Nanji Family Foundation and HCI this year supported our digital higher education program. So the best way to get refugees to depend on themselves is to make them get a chance to get educated and get a better life. So we created a digital higher education program a few years ago where people can attend MIT, Oxford, while they are in their camp. Everything was provided, including their finances, their livelihood, their clothing, their computer, everything. And this program, hasn't it been for these 2 ladies who are Canadian, this program would have been shut down this year due to the cuts. And these 2 ladies, unknowingly, just for the love of education, supported it and made it survive. And now next year is going to grow. So to me, these ladies, I'm inviting you to a conference we're holding on November 19 at UFT. And also it will be a chance to chat with people from Canada, and our leadership will come also for that conference to discuss of course we can do a lot, but what is best to do, and also understand how severe the situation is. So see you on November 19th. My friend Douglas will have all the details if you're interested to come. A last word: in business, to help, to support, to grow, we use mergers and acquisitions. In the humanitarian world, it's all about partnerships, how we get together to save the people that mostly need it. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Mr. Nader Nakib, as Senior Engagement Officer for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Thank you for shedding some light on the harsh realities of today's Middle East crisis, the loss of lives, the displacement of families, the conditions, the refugee camps, the destruction of homes and communities. Your perspective deeply resonates with us as Rotarians. As we too are a humanitarian organization, we have learned from you that above all, our shared humanity calls on us to support one another, especially in times of greatest needs. I am grateful to have welcomed members from other clubs to tonight's dinner, and I hope that together we can collaborate and make a real difference in the lives of those who suffer most.